Hello and welcome to episode 45 of Can We Still Be Friends, a podcast that tests the limits of the friendship between two people who mistake movie taste for personal morality. I'm Nate Goss, here with Ryan Ebling. As we do every year for Halloween, Ryan and I catch up on a horror movie that one or both of us have yet to see. This year, we've selected 1973 cult classic about a classic cult, The Wicker Man. Neither of us have seen this one, and frankly, neither of us knew very much about it before we had watched it. But as budding horror movie fans, this one was always on our list.
The Wicker Man has a tumultuous history. Its distributor tried to bury it and released a cut that writer Anthony Schaefer and director Robin Hardy were unhappy with. There have been several versions released, but the longest known cut has yet to be released officially. In spite of its early troubles, the film has grown to be a favorite among horror fans. In fact, you could say we're watching The Wicker Man in honor of the 10-year anniversary of the Nicolas Cage remake, which was released in 2006. You could say that, but you shouldn't, because if anything, a Nicolas Cage remake gave us pause.
But is the original any good despite that Nicolas Cage stamp of approval?
Or will we simply never understand the true nature of this movie? Keep listening.
You're liars. You are despicable little liars. Rowan Morrison is a schoolmate of yours, isn't she? And that is her desk, isn't it? Well, isn't it?
I think you ought to know.
And you are the biggest liar of all. I warn you, one more lie out of you, and I will charge you with obstruction. And believe me, Miss Rose, that is a promise. Now, for the last time, where is Rowan Morrison?
So that's a clip from The Wicker Man. Sergeant Howie has kind of come to the realization that everybody in the town's lying to him about this missing girl that he's there to find. And they all deny she exists, but he knows they're lying.
There's something going on. There's a lot of weird stuff going on.
There is a lot of weird stuff going on.
I think that's kind of the idea.
I got that sense, yeah. You're supposed to think the stuff going on is weird.
Right. Wouldn't really work if you didn't think it was all that weird.
No. It would be a very different feeling movie to you.
Right. Well, welcome to our third Halloween episode.
Ooh.
Can We Still Be Friends? Are you feeling scared?
I am, but 2016 has just been Halloween.
Yeah.
We lost Bowie, we lost Prince.
True.
Everybody we love is dying, and there's clowns everywhere.
Yes.
Not to mention the unmentionable one himself.
Biggest clown of them all.
Yeah, it's been a scary year.
It's been a scary year. But we're here with our Oktoberfest here.
Right.
And ready to discuss a movie that we both needed to catch up with.
Yeah.
The Wicker Man. Why are we doing this movie?
Well, I had just always heard about it and wanted to see it.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
pretty much the only reason.
Yeah. Same here. And then there was the whole Burn the Witch video from Radiohead.
Sure, there was that, yeah.
Which is definitely playing with some of the ideas of The Wicker Man in the music video.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about the song so much, but
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, it's more or less the same reason we did Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know?
Yeah. Both from the 70s.
Yeah, I think 73 and 74, right?
Yeah. It's an interesting era for horror,
Yes.
I think, just from especially watching these two movies.
Yeah. Well, and then when you think about The Exorcist, too.
Yeah. It's just a scary decade.
Yes. So that's basically why. I mean, I keep hearing filmmakers and people talk about The Wicker Man as, one of those best horror movies.
Now, I really knew pretty much nothing about this movie.
Me
going
too.
in. And you were the same way?
Honestly,
Yeah.
I knew
nothing.
very little.
Yeah.
And so you can imagine my surprise
think
when
so.
the movie turns out to be not just a horror movie, but I could say erotic horror Scottish folk musical.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. Especially the musical element
really
threw
surprised me.
Yeah.
I mean, in my notes, I was like, "Ooh, this first song is kind of funny."
Yeah.
Like, corn rigs and barley rigs.
But didn't it have that? It felt 70s to me.
Oh,
because
very
of that.
much so.
Because
Yeah.
It reminded me of like when you would hear like Leonard Cohen and McCabe and Mrs. Miller
or Cat Stevens and Harold and
yeah,
Maude.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it fit right in with that.
It did, but I was not with a horror movie.
No.
And then turns out, oh, they're going to be singing throughout this movie.
Right.
I was very surprised by that.
Can you think of any other horror musicals?
I mean, there's that movie Repo that kind of goes around among. It's a really cult classic movie.
I haven't seen it, so I guess
I
didn't immediately
haven't
come to
either,
mind.
but that's the only one I can think of.
There's Cannibal the musical, which I haven't seen.
I don't know anything
but I don't
about
even
that.
know how much on the horror side of things that really, or is it, if it's more just comedy.
There is Sweeney Todd.
Well, yeah, I guess. Although I feel like the music in this type of movie works very differently than in something like Sweeney Todd.
Yes,
as far
I'd
as
say
the
so.
purpose of it even being in there. Yeah.
Well, because it's a fine. Is it added music or is it like in scene music?
I like
kind
how
of both.
I like how it's kind of up in the air.
Yeah.
I don't think the movie ever really explains it one way or another.
Right.
Well, maybe we're getting a little ahead of
bit.
ourselves before we jump right into our conversation.
Should we do our ratings? We don't have previous ratings.
No, we don't. And I'm curious to know what your rating would be on
I'm
this.
curious to know yours.
Because it's just such a... let me just say I was completely blindsided by this movie.
Yeah.
Nothing about this movie is what I expected.
Nothing.
And horror itself, to me, is kind of always a hard one to rate because I was reading an Empire article that was talking about Wicker Man, but kind of off the cuff, the critics sort of explain what horror should do in one sentence. And I don't know if I fully agree with it, but I think there's a point to it where it just says that good horror disturbs and challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And was I disturbed and challenged by the Wicker Man? Boy, you bet.
Yeah.
So was it effective as a horror movie?
I guess so.
I think it totally was. And I don't know. It's. I watched this a few days ago. It's certainly stuck with me a lot. I've thought about it a lot, and I think I really like this movie. Actually,
okay.
I'm actually going to go. I'll put it at a 4-star. I'm actually willing to be maybe talked up to a 5-star on this one, but it's very dependent on what what our conversation turns into.
I didn't expect that.
Okay,
I'm interested to have this conversation because I put this at a 2-star.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I was disturbed, but it was more like aren't you disturbed rather than like actually disturbing me.
Now, is this kind of like comedy where it's hard to really argue?
It may be.
What's effective on people as far as horror goes.
It may be,
and
but I think if we can kind of
explain ourselves a little bit.
Yeah. I never would have thought 5-star. That is surprising.
Well, I don't know that I would go that far, but I think someone could probably talk me up to it after a while. I think that the more I've kind of thought about it, ruminated on it, I was like, I think this movie's doing some really interesting things with horror, and I think that it's expressing things through the horror genre that don't get expressed very often, and bringing out different types of disturbances in human nature and psychosis that I don't think a lot of people want to spend a lot of time thinking too much about. And the Wicker Man kind of sticks you in it. And I think that it kind of has this level of intrigue that keeps you going the entire time. Because I knew next to nothing about it, the twist really was a twist to me. Like, I did not see that coming.
Yeah, I think I may need some stuff explained to me.
Well,
maybe I just was too caught off guard.
I don't know that I could explain everything, although I also don't know that we can explain everything given the history of the cuts of this film. And
right. Well,
what did we actually see? We didn't see
same
everything.
Cut.
Okay.
We watched the same cut looking at this DVD.
So maybe for our listeners, if you're not fully aware of the history of this movie, it's got just as much of a history of distribution hell as any movie you're ever gonna hear of. I mean, really hardly anybody's actually seen the original cut of this movie,
which is 102 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was shown a couple places, I think.
Not in America, though.
No.
If you saw The Wicker Man in America during its theatrical run, you were seeing the Roger Corman cut, which was cut down so it could be a double bill with another horror movie. And it cut out a lot of setting up of Sergeant Howie, which we also saw a lot cut out of. I guess there were a lot of scenes.
That's not the director's cut that we saw.
Oh, no, but I don't think the director's cut really even exists.
It does. They released it on Blu-ray. I don't know if they released it in America on Blu-ray. But they did release it on Blu-ray.
It was called the director's cut.
Right, but it wasn't the 102-minute one.
Right.
There were still some things missing. And the scenes that are missing do sound interesting. It maybe would have filled things out a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I really felt like a lot of the filmmaking storytelling was very clunky.
Sure.
But yes, the movie, the distributors tried to kill it, and then they tried to get him to change the ending so that a rainstorm came and put out the fire.
Could you imagine?
And Sergeant Howie survived.
Yeah.
To do what? I don't know. You're all under arrest. I don't know.
Run away and then get pushed off into the rocks and drown.
So I guess maybe we should talk about the plot of Wicker Man. Just run through. Sergeant from mainland Scotland hears of a missing girl on this small island. And he goes to the town, asks around. People say that girl never existed. Don't know who you're talking about. But he keeps finding records at the school, at the death certificate kind of office, that this girl existed.
And then he also finds like at least one or two people who do acknowledge that she existed.
Right,
like,
and that she's not alive anymore.
Right.
And so he's trying to solve this case and realizes the whole town is practicing ancient pagan
religion
ceremonies. Yeah. And every spring they have this
May Day celebration for the sun god.
Right.
For their crops.
For their crops to be good. Their crops were bad the year before, so this year they're going to make a sacrifice. And the sergeant's trying to find the girl so that she won't be sacrificed. He finds out she's alive or realizes she's still alive and knows they're going to sacrifice her. So he goes to try to find her to save her. And meanwhile, the town sings songs. There's a lot of sex.
Mm-hmm.
Just like background sex. It's kind of the first movie I've seen that just has background sex, maybe after
Eyes Wide Shut.
Eyes Wide Shut, yeah. Just walking through the woods and okay.
It's all
they're back there,
and there's like fertility rituals with like there's
I mean, to their credit,
there's some nudity in this.
It's not just random sex. Like there's a reason for all of it.
No, I wouldn't say this movie really ever veers into pornographic material.
We can say that for it. This movie does not become pornographic.
But the sort of twist at the end is that he does finally find this girl at this point where it seems like the village is going to sacrifice her.
Mm-hmm.
And then as he's going to step up and save her, she actually takes him by the hand and they try to run away together, but then you realize it was all just a trap.
Him,
she was actually playing the part and tricking the whole village, was tricking him because he was actually the sacrifice.
Yeah.
And it ends with him being sacrificed within this huge wicker man, hence the Wicker Man.
Right. They set it on fire.
And it should also be said that he is in the movie. He's a religious man.
Yes.
Very upstanding. A virgin is also sort of a main point. So in their eyes, in this village's eyes, he becomes the perfect sacrifice.
Right.
That's the plot.
So that's everything. Yep. And Christopher Lee beautifully plays kind of the cult leader, the pagan.
He's the Lord
Summerisle.
of the island, and
does a great job. So where do we start? I mean, we're starting at opposite ends. What worked for you? What was good about this movie?
First of all, what struck me was just how it was a horror movie, but it didn't feel all that much like a horror movie. Like, you're not going to get a lot of the big jumps or scares. No. It's not even going to really build a lot of intensity for any sort of release in any sort of scene. It's all about the tone, really.
I knew it would be, or I felt like it was supposed to be.
Okay.
Is what I should say.
Yeah. And maybe that just didn't work for you. But I mean, it's more about just an overall eeriness, a hauntedness of this island. It's also not like a lot of horror movies in that I think pretty much almost the entire movie, with the exception of maybe one sex scene, is either in daylight or lit, you know.
Even when he's like trying to sleep at night.
Yeah, the lights
are on.
Yeah. It's
Which is what I consider clunky filmmaking.
I think it was kind of
mood
intentional.
Setting.
And now, was I like up at night, because I was so freaked out by this movie? Not really. But what I feel like it accomplished was really capturing that fear that maybe we've all had, where we just felt alone in a surrounding that we could not understand. You don't really know what to do, and you thought you kind of had a way that you constructed your life and made sense of it all, and you get thrown into a situation where it's all slightly familiar, but then completely off and terrifying at the same time. And that's really what most of the movie is doing, is creating this world for you. It's actually that the island itself is the horror villain. There's that aspect of it.
The mindset.
The mindset and the otherness, the idea of like you being alone. And I think it's very important that he's not with like a partner.
Right.
He is completely by himself. Sergeant Howie, he really doesn't even have any connection at all to mainland Scotland. There's that aspect. Then I think there's the whole, if you want to call it social commentary, but there's the whole way that this plays with religion, unlike anything I've really ever seen in a horror movie. Not like in the way that, say, a possession movie or an exorcism movie deals with religion. It's very different, actually, completely avoiding the supernatural, and yet still it's using belief as a source for horror and as a way of provoking the viewer to consider the way that religion can be used.
Sure.
I just thought that was kind of a different take with using religion in a horror movie.
Yeah.
And I can get into specific scenes.
Well, and I want you to get into what specifically you think it's saying about religion and belief.
I was going to ask you the same question because, I don't really have a clear answer on that. Yeah. I don't think that necessarily detracts or adds to my view of the movie as far as not having a clear answer on that. I like the fact that it brings up those questions. I still can't quite figure out, specifically thinking about Christianity, I still don't know if the movie upholds it, if it ridicules it, or if it just equalizes it, if it kind of just puts it on an equal footing with every other religion.
That's what I was just thinking.
I could make a case for any one of those.
Yeah, because definitely it's what protects him from becoming like the people for a while.
He certainly holds to his core convictions the entire time, all the way up until the end. He essentially becomes a martyr of the Christian faith. What's kind of terrifying about that is how apathetic the pagan believers are to that. They're not even sacrificing him because he's Christian.
Right.
It's just that he doesn't lose his convictions or his belief in Christianity as he's being killed for this pagan ritual.
Yeah. And like you said, it can almost equalize it because his faith doesn't save him in the end.
Right. And also not only that, but you've got the whole conversation between Lord Summerisle and Howie.
What religion can they possibly be learning? Jumping over bonfires.
Parthenogenesis.
What?
Literally, as Miss Rose would doubtless say in her assiduous way, reproduction without sexual union.
Oh, what is all this? You've got fake biology, fake religion. Sir, have these children never heard of Jesus?
Himself the son of a virgin, impregnated, I believe, by a ghost. Do sit down, Sergeant. Shocks are so much better absorbed with the knees bent.
Yeah, I think that there's possibility for those two readings, but also then you've got the added possibility of being against organized religion at all.
Right. Is that what you're taking away from it?
Honestly, I don't know. And that's one of the things that like kind of bugs me about the movie. I feel like it was like a writer like taking notes, outlining his movie, and like he had this big space on the sheet and just wrote something about religion and underlined it twice, and then forgot to get into any specifics about it, and was just like, yeah, I think we've got that religion thing in there. Like it definitely is, and yeah, it's raising questions. Maybe that's all it needs to do, but like,
you think it handles it kind of carelessly?
I think it handles it in the same way that I feel like it handles its disturbing.
Maybe
like,
it handles it as an outsider.
Well, it doesn't do anything with it. Like the disturbing elements don't do anything really new. It's just very much like, isn't this disturbing, or isn't religion something? Like it never really lands in either of those places as to like what's supposed to really be disturbing you about this sort of thing. That one a little bit less. I think that there are things that are like clearly, but like what it's supposed to be saying, I don't think it's an asset to the movie that it could say three things about religion, and some of them contradictory, you know? Like, is his faith saving him, or is his faith worthless, or is all faith equal? Like, a movie that says those three things is a movie that's saying nothing about faith.
You think so?
Yes.
I don't know.
If a movie says that your faith can save you, if a movie also at the same time says it doesn't matter what you believe, and a movie also at the same time says that your faith is worthless.
Are you saying because the movie doesn't spell out how it feels about religion, that
I'm not
makes
asking for the movie to be overt. I'm asking for the movie to have an idea.
I think it does have an idea. I think the idea in the movie is that religion, in the movie, an aspect of it is it being a social construct.
Yeah.
And I think that the movie is more just playing with this idea of, depending on the context you are brought up in, that social construct either feels familiar or it feels other. Sure. And also that social construct of religion can be completely evil, and in a way that's very blind to the evil it's perpetuating.
Those people wouldn't think it was evil.
Of course they wouldn't, but you as a viewer do. You don't think human sacrifice is evil? That's the whole point. I mean, I think the whole point is that this is evil you are watching, and it's terrifying that these people don't see it that way, and that his religion, as powerful as he thinks it is powerless against that. It's like, I think in a way, The Wicker Man, it takes a very, very critical view of human nature. And I don't think it's against religion, but I think it is very real about the ways that religion can outpour into complete evil sometimes, in ways that the people who follow it aren't even able to see. Mm-hmm. And it is a way for you as a believer. It's not saying Christianity is garbage. It's saying that if you're a Christian, it's probably a good idea to actually think about what you believe in, and make sure that, you're not blindly following something. And if you're not a Christian, you watch it and it's just a take on religion in general. I think that how it feels about religion is just as complex, and as you're saying that it needs to sort of take a stand one way or another, but religion is a complex thing. Well, I mean, I think it's taking a much more holistic view of religion in general, not so much looking at how it feels about this religion or that religion, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do get that. And I'm not saying that the movie needed to end saying like, and so Christianity was good, or like, and clearly faith is dead.
I mean, you're almost saying that the movie's not saying anything. And I really do feel like it was saying something quite a bit. I mean, I think
it's
I kind of
saying
just
all those things.
Yeah.
But that's not like that. At that point, then you're saying nothing. If you're saying everything and all of it's contradicting itself, then you're not saying anything. I think where your argument is strongest is saying that it's about like questioning, but I think that's a pretty read into interpretation.
You mean when the whole movie is showing you a belief system of people, then it's intentionally trying to sort of provoke you into feeling a little scared by what these people believe into? You don't see any reason to maybe reflect on, this has something to do with what people will believe.
Yeah, I guess no. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
I don't know. I don't want to fight with you here. I'm just saying that, like,
I don't feel like you do. I think you're right. You're right. What you just said is right. I guess I didn't follow everything you said the first time you said it.
Maybe. I mean, I might not have put it the right way. There was a book I was reading called Religion and Film by Melanie Wright. It was actually, you can read snippets of it on Google Books, which was how I found it. But she said The Wicker Man suggests that a thin line separates civilization from barbarity. And I think it's another way you could look at it if you don't want to take the religion aspect.
I don't think you could not take the religion aspect.
Sure. But I think then she goes on to talk about how religion in the movie is presented as kind of is more of a social construct. I think you're right in a sense that like the writer started with maybe something that wasn't quite fully fleshed out and then sort of built upon that. Because I remember Anthony Schaefer was interviewed on some of the special features on the DVD. He thought to himself that there was just something inherently horrific about the idea of human sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And the reality that happened, that there were these religions, and especially within like the Roman world to their gods, that there were these accounts of human sacrifice. Yeah. And that the other thing that he was trying to kind of couple with that was this idea of what if the British Isles had not thrown off the old gods.
Yeah.
And that having to view that within the modern context would be somewhat horrific, like because it would just be so foreign to us.
Right. I can see why that would be scary, but again, it's the same. It feels so much like this movie had a concept, it had ideas, but to me, it just doesn't pull it off. Yeah, you think about those ideas. I feel like this conversation is going to be as scary as The Wicker Man was.
You think so?
Because to me, the movie didn't do anything to present those in a way other than to say them. Even to the point that in one scene, he reads just from a book. It felt so lazy to me.
You mean when he was in the library?
Yeah.
Yeah.
6 swordsmen follow these figures, and at the climax of the ceremony lock their swords together in a clear symbol of the sun. In pagan times, however, these dances were not simply picturesque jigs. They were frenzied rites ending in a sacrifice by which the dancers hoped desperately to win over the goddess of the fields. In good times, they offered produce to the gods and slaughtered animals. But in bad years, when the harvest had been poor, the sacrifice was a human being.
Thanks, that's everything we need to know.
Yeah, there's a lot of exposition going on in that scene. I won't lie.
And like all the disturbing stuff, it feels like a haunted house, like a really cheap haunted house, where you're supposed to be scared, but all they're doing is going through the motions.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I don't know how scared I was watching it. I think it was more just I enjoyed watching it because it just felt odd to me. You kind of sit in a different world for a while, and the whole world just felt off kilter to me. Like it just felt odd. I feel like
that's the filmmaking, not like I.
You don't think there was any intention behind it?
No, I mean there were a couple performances that I was like, that's hitting the mark. There were a couple filmmaking things that I was sort of like, this is doing it for now, but like 80% just felt amateur to me.
Well, I mean, it was a pretty low budget film.
I get that, but there are low budget films even from the 70s. Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Sure.
I mean, that movie is low budge like crazy. And man, that makes it scarier. Mm-hmm. I get it. I don't necessarily need to be as scared as I was during that movie.
Well, yeah,
other movies
that was
for this to be a good movie.
And you understand it was a very different type of horror movie. I mean, that movie I was scared watching.
Yeah,
so I mean, it didn't have that
movie again.
Visceral effect. I will grant you that Wicker Man.
I was watching like
a
film essay, and they had that final scene where she's on the truck, and I was like, I'm never watching that movie again.
Yeah,
I know that, but I still, even with what the Wicker Man was trying to do, it didn't. For me, it never got past the like wiggling its fingers, going woo at me with these ideas.
Well, I mean, so was there? You did say there were some things that worked.
Yeah, Christopher Lee's performance worked.
Yeah,
I think the landlord's performance was tremendously creepy.
You mean the guy who owns the inn?
Mm-hmm.
Are you the landlord here?
I'm Alder McGregor, and you must be the policeman from the mainland.
Ah, that's right. Sergeant Howie, West Highland Constabulary. Now, I'm quite obviously not going to get back to the mainland tonight, so I wondered if you had a room and a bite of supper I could have. I mean, could you manage that?
I think that can be arranged. My daughter Willow will show you to your room. Willow?
Father?
This is Sergeant Howie, a policeman from the mainland who will be spending the night with us. This is my daughter Willow.
Good evening.
Show the sergeant.
You know that he was a choreographer for David Bowie?
Really?
Yeah. And Kate Bush, I think.
Wow. I didn't know that.
I forget his name, Lindsay something. The casting itself makes some difference in this movie. Like that guy, he's just a guy to me. But then when I found that out, people thought that was like a really interesting casting choice for that reason.
Well, and that's another thing that didn't really click with me. I just never connected with Sergeant Howie. I think. Do you think those cut scenes would have helped?
Yeah.
Because one of the cut scenes is a scene back at the mainland when he gets the letter, and you overhear coworkers talking about how they disrespect him because of his like values and the fact that he won't have sex with his fiance and like all this stuff.
Right.
Like the idea that this guy was an outsider
you missed
from the
that.
Beginning would have helped immensely.
I completely agree, actually.
I would have, because at the point, as it is, the guy just seems like a dick. And I'm like, calm down. All right. Like
Well-
from the beginning, he's acting like that. If I had had the context that he came from Scotland, like he just left a scene where he overheard people talking crap about him, I would be like, now I know why this guy's got something to prove.
Well, yeah, and also by the time they actually talk about him being a virgin, you kind of just have to take their word for it. Like,
Yeah, it's just
there's-
Christopher Lee who's
There's
like,
no reason for you to actually believe other than the people on the island saying it.
right.
that-
And the only thing he's said is that he won't have sex with Britt Eklund because he is engaged.
right. I admit, because I mean, yeah, I agree, and I didn't know about even like all the different versions that existed out there when I watched the movie. So
I
the
didn't either.
clunkiness to me was something that stuck out and seemed like a real flaw of the movie.
And then you were okay with it once you found out there were
No,
other
I just don't.
versions? Like-
No, I just don't think that it's just not something that drastically changes how I felt about the movie. The fact that it didn't set him up as well at the beginning didn't really detract from where I thought the movie was kind of doing with that character. Like,
Well-
I felt like as the movie progressed,
Yeah, but it took such a long time, and not in a slow burn. This movie knows how to take its time. It's like beating us over the head with it,
Yeah.
taking its time.
well, I think, and honestly,
Then I'm like, the way this guy's acting, of course the town's going to unite against him, no matter what they believe. This guy's just coming in thinking he can push his weight around.
sure, and I
Like-
think that's maybe part of the comedy of what you would see in Simon Pegg's character in Hot Fuzz.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I'm filtering a lot of stuff through just even thinking about that, even where I'm like, okay, so that's just sort of what they were poking fun at a little bit in Hot Fuzz, is the guy who can come in and kind of just seem like he can push everyone
Sure,
around.
It
And
makes me appreciate Hot Fuzz more, but I shouldn't need Hot Fuzz to appreciate the Wicker Man.
when I watched it, I just kind of felt like that was his character. Like he was just sort of
Like,
a
you kinda got the
dickish
short
cop.
end of it.
Yeah.
But then why would I sympathize with him? I just don't see how accepting that would make me care about this character. And the twist at the end requires you caring about this character. And eventually, you're right. Over time, you start to see the depth of the evil of this belief system. And so, sure, if I have to choose, yeah, I'll choose the guy who doesn't want human sacrifice. But other than that, that's like what my choice is based on. It's like, even though, for what it's worth, I'm being way more charmed by Christopher Lee and his performance.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the point too. Partly
Yeah.
is that he
as
is
far as-
convincing and he is,
Sure,
he
needs to be that way,
charming and
He needs
likable
to be
and-
that way so that the town, there's a reason for that.
Right.
If he's just this evil, sinister, crazy dude, there's no reason the town would ever follow what he says. He has to be charming for that reason. He doesn't have to be more charming and likable than the main character, though, unless you think that's something the movie's trying to make us question.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know that I really gave it all that much thought.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do think that by the end, no matter what your feeling on that character is, to me, the performance at the end in The Wicker Man as he's burning is
Yes.
a very terrifying, realistic. That to me is like on par with like, and maybe it's a direct reference, I don't know, but you think of like, something like Passion of Joan of Arc. This terrifying realization where I think as a viewer, you're not even sure at the very, very end.
Mm-hmm.
You'd like to think that he isn't giving up on anything. But there's a terrifying look in his face where you're kind of like, I don't know.
Let me not undergo the real pains of hell, dear God, because I die unshriven. And establish me in that bliss which knows no ending. Through Christ, our Lord.
Everything just seems so hopeless. I mean, this is a rare horror movie where really no ounce of good prevails over evil. In fact, that was a question posed on Twitter asking to recommend a horror movie where no ounce of good prevailed over evil. Actually, The Witch came up quite a bit. You saw The Witch,
Yeah.
right? That was a great movie too.
Oof.
That was really good.
Man, was it.
Really good.
That is what the Wicker Man was trying to be, I think.
Well, that's like today. I feel like that could be considered like a modern day Wicker Man, and that
It
this
works
is.
so much
But
better.
this is 1973. I mean, not to mention
Movies
this is.
set tones in 1973.
But this is. I mean, you got to think this is like, to me, you would see The Shining do a lot of stuff that The Wicker Man did first. Like the fact of doing so much horror in the broad daylight, having it be so psychological and not so much about jump scares.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like,
Sure.
It's not like you could do it well back then.
I think it does, though. I think that's just where we're at a crossroads. I think it does it well. You don't.
No, I don't. I don't know. I don't think it was just the singing caught me off guard. I will say that final scene, yes, definitely worked. The twist, my response was a little more than, oh, no way. Like, I didn't see it coming, but when it happened, I was like, oh, wow. Like, that was it.
It's not like an M. Night Shyamalan movie where like it's like the whole, it makes you think,
No.
it does make you think of some things differently, but not as much as like you have to reconceive your entire notion of the movie.
But
I was probably like the same way as you. I was
kept-
like, oh, I was not
I hope
terrified
so.
when they were like, oh, you're the one being sacrificed. It's like, I wasn't like, oh my God. And then it's like, when you have to watch it, you have to actually see the Wicker Man go up in flames,
Right.
and you have to hear him, recite a hymn and do the best he can to sort of preserve what faith he has as courage, and then the sort of passiveness of these people, because they could care less what he actually believes,
Did you ever watch any of the Christian apocalypse movies from the 70s?
I can't say that I did.
Then maybe that's partly why you're okay with The Wicker Man.
Okay.
Because I saw a couple.
What are these? I've never even heard of them.
Like Thief in the Night is one.
Never saw it.
It's terrible. But if you're like 12, it's really scary.
Okay.
But it's just like, it felt so much like that to me. That just came to me. It's not like while I was watching this, I was like, this is like Thief in the Night, and that's a stupid movie. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's just like another sort of movie that just says like, listen, this idea is scary, be scared, or this idea is disturbing, be disturbed, but doesn't really do anything with it. I this may be a tough thing to argue because I just, so for one, another thing, specific example of something that maybe was supposed to be tense or moody or disturbing, but to me was just like, was when he's like tearing the town apart to find Rowan. That felt like a delightful romp. Because the music, because everybody he saw was so jolly. And I guess that's like disturbing that they're like, we don't care that you're looking for this girl that we're going to kill. But it almost all had like the feel of like a travel documentary too, because he would like break into people's rooms and they'd be like, here's my mask.
What's that?
The Life of the Fields. John Barleycorn.
What's in here?
What's that?
That's my costume. The salmon of knowledge.
It was so tone deaf to me that to talk about this movie setting a tone, it was like, yeah, it's a movie that should have had a tone set.
I mean, it stuck pretty close to that sort of pagan ideas and symbols that you would see, and it kind of had a feel of like, this is the most hellish Renaissance fair I've ever been to. I
didn't have my like book of pagan symbols open and saying like, I got that one wrong. The whole just feel of it as he's like going from building to building, and he doesn't seem tremendously worried. He just kind of seems like, not in here. I'll check this drawer. Nope, not that drawer. Like a fish costume. He wasn't uncovering new information. It just was so silly to me.
I don't know what to say.
Maybe the concept worked for you, and you could watch and just see each scene for its concept. But
yeah,
for me, I just could not.
I even liked the music, aside from maybe the Corn Rig song. I didn't really care for that one too much. But
that song, even like Britt Eklund's song.
Smooth and stroke your hair.
It was one of those scenes that just threw me off. I was like, what is going on here?
Sure.
And then at first I was like, is this just being provocative for the hell of it? Just eroticism and sexuality. And the way that he fights it is just so odd, like banging against the wall. And In what way was she actually seducing him? I don't really know, because he couldn't see the fact that she was naked. You know, they were in separate rooms. But I think that you were seeing the symbolic idea of seduction there. And I don't know, this song worked for me, and I just thought it was kind of another way of adding psychologically this weirdness to the movie that just compiled over and over to me. I mean, again, it wasn't like I could just point to one scene and say, you know, that was what was super effective to me. It was just this cumulative effect of like, this place is just so odd and so weird.
Well, I feel like I could point to several scenes and say that's why it's not effective for me.
I don't know. Maybe I just wasn't as laser-like in my focus of every scene. I mean, I can certainly say my wife wasn't paying that much attention to it. And it's certainly not the kind of movie that you want to drop in and out of.
Right.
Because she was just like, this movie is so strange, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it is. I kind of like it. Like, it's an odd movie, you know? And I like the fact that it's horror unlike anything I've seen before and really haven't seen since.
I guess it's not common to have horror that isn't scary. You're right.
Come on now.
I mean, I'm shocked. I almost felt bad for choosing this movie. And then
oh, really?
I find out you're like borderline 5 stars on it. I don't know, man. It's tough to say. It is a tough thing to talk about, because what scares people is, you know, what disturbs you is different. And that's like comedy you were saying is hard to convince somebody on. But for me, the reason I feel like I like have we could talk about why this isn't scary is just because the filmmaking is just not scary. And I think you're almost saying that too.
I think that you're right in the sense that if the last scene wasn't as genuinely terrifying, the payoff wouldn't be there. And I'd be exactly in your seat saying, this movie is kind of pointless and doesn't really have anything effective as far as horror goes. My feeling is that the movie builds and builds and builds to that final scene. And to me, that was the payoff moment. That was where any real visceral horror was finally unleashed in that last scene.
You don't think that the movie tried for visceral horror earlier?
I think it tried, yes. I mean, yeah, you had like the masks like looking over into the boat and things like that, which, I mean, that scene was effective to me. It just kind of came out of nowhere, and I was like, whoa, what's that?
It was unsettling.
Yeah, unsettling is a good word for it, yeah.
Finding the rabbit, I think, was supposed to be scary, and it really wasn't. It was just sort of like, oh. I feel like the movie's so flawed. I guess it's just whether or not you're willing to like overlook them and say like, whatever, I was disturbed or unsettled in other places. I didn't need it to be consistent.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think that I'd be kind of nitpicky if I picked out one scene and said, well, that one didn't work for me.
Yeah, you could be.
You know?
If you genuinely liked the whole movie, but then you went and tried to find one scene that didn't work, that would be nitpicky. I don't think I'm being nitpicky.
No, I don't think you are, but I would be if I started. I mean, because to me, like, what does it mean to say it worked? Like, it was unsettling and scary? I mean, I just think it worked all towards building this idea of the island.
All
and,
right.
you know.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get any further on this.
Nope, I don't think we are. And it's fine. I just don't get it. But I think it's safe to say this is our first time in a long time that we've got an It's Complicated.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm not moving my rating.
Well, I won't bump it up to a 5, but I don't think that what you've said has changed anything about the way I felt when I watched it, or even made me really think any less of the movie. Really. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, hey, it worked for me.
All right.
I'm going to keep mine at 4 stars.
Okay.
Then, and I will recommend that people watch this movie.
Okay, I'm not going to tell anybody not to watch it. I'll step out of the room. I'll go do something else.
So
just so you know, if you invite me to watch The Wicker Man, I'll be on my phone the whole time. No, for Nate's sake, I would watch it again.
Would you?
If people were watching it, I would do my best to pay attention to it.
Yeah. All right. On our scale of best buds, mutual understanding, it's complicated. Things are very complicated here.
Definitely complicated.
Yeah. And it's sad because it's our Halloween episode.
I know.
We'll have to go and watch The Witch together or something.
Have you seen The Witch?
Yeah, we talked about this. Yeah.
When did we talk about this?
In the episode.
Oh, well, yeah. All I remember you saying is I guess you did say that's a scary movie.
I love that movie. It was really good.
I thought all you said was, "Have you seen that movie?" And I said, "Yeah," and you said, "And you liked it." But then I do recall now. You said,
Yes,
you liked it too.
It's a very, very good movie.
It is a very good movie. Very unsettling and scary, but not like a typical horror movie that you would think of.
Right. Yeah.
I saw Green Room today.
You know, Evan, who's been on the show before, really liked that movie. Was it good?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
Same director as Blue Ruin.
Ah, that's a good movie.
Super violent.
Yeah.
Green Room.
Scary?
Yeah. I mean, tense.
Okay.
Definitely very,
Intense.
very tense. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a stack of horror movies that I need to start tearing through before Halloween.
What's in that stack?
The Babadook, which I still haven't seen. I've got Zombieland. It's more comedy horror.
Mm-hmm.
I've got the original Invisible Man.
Oh.
You know, just to see it. I've heard good things, actually.
Yeah.
What else? Jeez. Devil's Rejects is another one.
Oh, you're gonna watch some Rob Zombie? I kind of feel
I have a friend.
I feel too afraid to watch.
I have a
him,
friend
actually.
I have a friend at work who swears by it. So.
I mean, I've heard good things about the Devil's Rejects.
Yeah, that's the one he swears by. Is that one? So.
But it looks very, very scary.
So I'm gonna give that one a shot. And then what's the? I'm just blanking on the name. The Guillermo del Toro.
Devil's Backbone.
Yes, that one.
That one's good.
So that's my stack. It's
a good stack.
It's a good stack. I gotta get through it if I have the nerves to do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We'll see. So yeah, that wraps up our
talk on the Wicker Man. Yeah, let's talk about what we're gonna watch next time.
So for the next episode, it's an anniversary episode.
Uh-huh.
It's also an episode we're doing because of a new movie coming out.
Right.
We are going to discuss Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Right.
15 years old, came out in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And you're a huge Harry Potter movie fan, right? No,
I'm a Harry Potter fan. Yeah.
Okay.
I've read all the books. I've seen all the movies, probably not all of them multiple times, but yeah.
But you've seen all of them.
Yes.
Okay. And I watched the first two movies.
Be honest.
I did see the first two. I saw the first one, fell asleep through some of it. So I can't necessarily say I was a huge Harry Potter
that you
geek.
saw it.
Well, I saw a majority of it. I could say that.
You can,
and I will.
I suppose.
I will say that.
Depends on how much you slept.
We're coming at this from two very different places.
Right.
But I know that Harry Potter, just as a franchise, as a character, is very near and dear to a lot of people out there, my wife being one of them.
Interesting.
And so that will be an interesting conversation. And I actually, even though I slept through it the first time, I am excited to, watch it again and see if my view will change.
Yeah.
It's possible.
It is.
That's what we believe in this podcast, that change is possible.
We do.
But, another reason we're talking about it is because Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them is coming out also in November.
Yep.
So there's a lot of things Harry Potter-esque going on in November.
The world is still abuzz about Harry Potter.
Yeah. 15 years later, after the movie, the book.
15, like 19 years after the book, or 20-something years after the book. I don't know. I'm guessing it hasn't hit the 20th anniversary because I feel like we would have heard something about that.
The book?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably getting close,
next
though.
year.
It's got to be getting close. And that's going to be crazy.
Oh, my gosh. Can you imagine?
It's just going to be wizards and...
Right.
This shows you how much I know about
Witches,
Harry Potter. Yeah, those two. And
anything else?
What's the game that they play? What, widget ball or something?
You look like you were playing paddle ball.
Yeah, it's like that, though, right?
No. Quidditch?
Quidditch, that's it.
No, it's nothing like paddle ball.
Okay.
I kind of forget this movie too, but so I'm excited to watch it as well.
It'll be good and a nice, sort of light, coming up on Thanksgiving and all that. Just sort of a nice, good family film to watch. Mm-hmm. It'll give our listeners an excuse to watch it again. Gather the family around and enjoy some Harry Potter.
Yeah, even though since it's set in England, they don't celebrate Thanksgiving in the movies.
Oh, they just play Quidditch.
That's all they do. So yeah, gather the family. Or perhaps you need a break from your family.
That works too. Lock yourself up
watch
in
Harry
your bedroom
Potter
and watch Harry Potter.
And the Sorcerer's Stone. So you may want to say some things about Harry Potter before the next episode, or you may want to say something about the Wicker Man. You might say to yourself, how am I going to say these things to these people and get it heard?
Well, don't ask that too long, because there are ways to do that.
Well, that's right, and I was about to tell
Oh,
them.
okay.
That's what they may say that. I will not pose that question.
But
I
you will
pose
help
the
them.
answer.
You will help them in their quest for
Right, because there's Twitter.
communicating with us. Yeah.
At CWSBF is our handle. There's Facebook. Just search for Can You Still Be Friends podcast. There's our website, canwestillbefriends.net. If for some reason you feel like not having your words to us public, you can email us at feedback@canwestillbefriends.net.
We do check that.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah.
Wow,
Always.
Yeah. I just thought that
So-
if that was maybe a reason why someone thought maybe not to send it, they'd be like, they're not going to read this.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah. Well, it'd be foolish of us to name it as a way that they can reach us and then not check it.
I agree with you. I'm just saying.
It's not a P.O. box that we're like having to go downtown.
No,
fight
that's not a bad
traffic.
idea, though. But
Get a P.O. box?
Yeah.
It would make me feel, you know what it would make me feel like? It would make me feel like a children's game show from the 90s. Because I feel like
Send
they
your-
always were like, for ticket information, send in blah, 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 P.O. Box, blah, blah, blah. And then it was like a California zip code.
Of course.
93 something. But we do have a voicemail.
Yes, that number, if you'd like to call and leave us a message, 847-306-9532. That is not a California area code.
No. That's
That's-
suburbs of Chicago area code.
It is.
Not even
Yeah.
Chicago. It's not even 262.
Nope, 847.
Yep. So yeah, let us know. Talk about Harry Potter. Talk about the Wicker Man.
Yeah, or really anything that we've brought up in the podcast or that we haven't brought up in the podcast.
Sure. I mean, stay a little bit on topic, but any past episodes,
Of course.
if you're just finding, Can We Still Be Friends, and maybe we're talking about 2016 being a crazy year, and you're like, why, this is 2020, and we don't even remember 2016. You know,
Right. But they
you can
dug
still
up,
comment about this episode in
And-
2020. We'll be checking that email.
Yeah.
We'll be heading down to the P.O. box with our key and.
Yeah, we'll definitely be checking our P.O. box. I can't guarantee in 2020 that we'll
Sure,
still be
that's
checking our
true.
email inbox.
Everybody might be back to P.O. boxes.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
This internet thing cannot last forever.
Right. You're probably listening to us on a wax cylinder that you get mailed to you at your P.O. box.
So anyways, that's all the ways that you can communicate with us, and we would love to hear from you.
Yep.
And we also just want to thank you for listening to this podcast.
Definitely.
And sticking with us for how many episodes? 45
This is episode
episodes.
45. The big
45 episodes.
coming back like Jordan. We're in the 4-5.
That's right.
Maybe we should have done Space Jam for this episode.
Oh my gosh. Why did we not think of that?
I don't know.
Can we just redo it?
Yeah, let's put this one off.
We're glad that I hope you guys have a great Halloween and have some fun times. And thank you for listening to our third Halloween episode.
Stay away from any clowns, by the
Oh
way.
yeah, that's right. Oh, in 2020, listeners, there was a huge
Oh,
clown
my gosh,
thing.
it was
going
all the
on.
rage.
It was this huge,
Do
scary.
you guys
clown
remember
thing.
that, or have clowns taken over even more?
Clowns could just be
Who knows?
people now.
Maybe that's everybody's clowns, and we're sounding super racist.
that's probably it.
That may be what happened.
I meant nothing. I meant nothing.
You have to
offensive about
understand
clowns.
where we're coming from.
In our context, clowns right now are very scary,
yeah,
but they don't have to be. And that's
Like,
not all clowns. That is not all
are scary,
clowns.
but
That's
the
not all
clowns that are there are clowns being scary. But there are some very
well-meaning,
well dressed, clean cut, articulate clowns.
Right.
That one of my friends is a clown.
We have no
and it's great.
problems with clowns,
and
in
he's
general.
awesome. That's why I can make clown jokes. Actually, is because of him, and he's like really cool about it.
Yeah.
And you like would barely know he was a clown.
Right. He doesn't really act like a clown.
Not at all. He's definitely a clown, but like he's not like I'm a clown about
Right,
it.
right.
Like, so he's very cool. You guys would love him.
So disregard a lot of the.
Just
What we
like
said
you have to
about
understand the
clowns. It's
context.
just-
You have to understand the context.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. See ya.